Let's go back in time to 1932 as Converse brings you historic footage of the legendary original Celtics, with whom all great professional teams are compared.
We have now taken over your radio.
Richie Guerin is about to show you the most important step in getting past a man. It's the first one.
And Oscar will inbound it. The men in green, the Milwaukee Bucks, that's Alcindor against Bellamy.
Has Jordan. Allen shakes. Gray gets two.
Gilmore on snap. Oh, brother. Lead Toledo artists. You get 21.
4:28 to go in the first quarter for the Cow Palace. Here's Barry.
Jordan. Open. Chicago with the lead.
Hello, and welcome back to the Over and Back Classic NBA podcast. I am Jason Mann, and with me as always is Rich Kraetsch. Rich, good to be back with you.
Absolutely. We are continuing to chug away on this top 50 project. The end is near, though.
The end is near, indeed.
We're almost there, yes. I'm very excited to finally launch our new top 50 list and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, we got a few more guys to go through, though, before we're ready for that.
Sure, and it'll be fun. Don't make it sound like it's a drag. This is fun. People are going to.
No, I agree. No, it's been great. It's just it's been a process, but it's a good thing though. It's as we said on a few shows ago. It'll be so rewarding when it's done because it's been a lot of work going in, a lot of people to talk to, a lot of scheduling on your part as well. You've been doing just an unbelievable job of scheduling all the guests and doing all that sort of stuff. So it's been a lot of work on your end, and obviously I appreciate it. But yeah, it'll be so good when it's over. Just not from the standpoint of it's good to be done with it, but just that I think it'll be a very rewarding experience to be like, here we go. Yeah, we're done. Like that's our list, and that we're sticking with it for now.
Yeah, it'll be nice to be done with it too. But
that's it.
So today we are talking about Carmelo Anthony. Sort of looking at his overall case. He is 120th in win shares, 158th in win shares per 48. 173rd in box score plus minus, 130th in value over replacement player. He has two times he's been on the All-NBA second team and 4 times on the All-NBA third team. He has never had a top 10 season in win shares for 48, box score plus minus, or value over replacement player, which actually surprised me quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm shocked. Yeah,
he has had 2 seasons top 10 in PER. He is 12th all-time in points per game, 5th all-time in usage percentage, and he on the Slam 500 all-time players, which was done, I believe, in 2011, he was 105th since then. So he is a great scorer, a very productive scorer, and can score from many points on the floor, but maybe not that many other things that he necessarily does that would, be in the top 50 range, based on the advanced metrics is not looking so great. But I don't know, Rich, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat as you, and I was actually shocked because when we went into this, I initially was thinking, no, Carmelo's not there yet. I mean, there's stuff he can do, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit of maybe that he can do later in his career to help him out or to up his chances or whatever. But then I went in and I was like, okay, let me look at these advanced stats and see where he does really rank. Because initially my thought was no, he's not a top 50, and then I look and I go, oh, man, like he is like no, it's hard to even make an argument for him right now based off a lot of that stuff. Based off of anything besides points per game. And that's, when we're talking about all time stuff as well, I was kind of shocked at the top 10 leaderboards. Like you mentioned, never, top 10 in win shares per 48, never in win shares, never in value over replacement player. And then also you look at the second team, 2 times on the second team isn't anything to slouch at, but you would almost think, given that it's, you think Carmelo Anthony, I think people of our generation, he gets a lot of coverage and a lot of hype and a lot of stuff. And I'm not saying he's like overrated or anything like that. I just think you sort of think he's better than he really is. And when you really look at it, and especially in the case of doing this project where we're looking at, the best of the best, he's just not there right now.
Yeah,
not to say that he can't, but right now, it's really. I would love to hear anybody make an argument because I just don't know if you can.
Yeah, and I do love watching him play. Like he's fun.
Oh, absolutely.
And he does a lot of things. I think like better than his reputation goes. I mean, he can defend when he wants to. He's not locked into it, but he has, especially a power forward. He's not too bad. He can actually pass pretty well, and like I said, he has a lot of scoring range. It's just that it's just not there. Like really, just the way that he plays maybe limits him in some respects, and maybe it's the right way for him to play in terms of what his team needs. Maybe it's not, But in terms of just, in terms of, what he needs to kind of do to be on here, yeah, he's not even close. And, some of those all NBA teams, I mean, he's behind, some great forwards, Dirk, Duncan, when he's moved onto the East and been more to the prime of his career, he's had a better shot kind of at those marks. But he's been behind a lot of guys who, are all-time greats. But really, I mean, yeah, if you kind of look at him and even kind of compare him to sort of his generation of guys, I'm not sure he's in the top five. I don't think he's necessarily in the top five cases of guys, from when his career started till now. I mean, he's definitely behind Wade. He's obviously behind LeBron, probably a couple other guys. So I really, I'm definitely not seeing. I do kind of wonder, like, okay, what would he have to do in his 30s to kind of be in this conversation?
Yeah, so for the purpose of this, we looked at a few guys that I thought would be good comps, or we talked off air would be really good comps, I think, for Carmelo Anthony at this point at, age 30, to see, where these guys went after age 30 and what they, amassed before age 30, just to get an idea of what, as you said, what Carmelo could do to sort of reach the level that some of these guys did, or possibly, lower, not reach that. Well, anyway. Paul Pierce, I'm looking at value over replacement player and win shares, and this is till their age 30 season. So just to get an idea of what we're doing here. Paul Pierce, 40.7 value over replacement player, and then 93.9 win shares. Vince Carter, 37.2 value over replacement player, and then 76 win shares. So he's a little bit lower than Pierce in value over replacement, but very low in terms of win shares. Tracy McGrady, another one of the comps, 49.9 value over replacement player. So he's way above Carter and Pierce at this point, and then 93.5 win shares. By age 30. Of course, as we know, that he didn't add too much to that resume, unfortunately, afterwards. But this gives us finally some good comps to Carmelo, who at this point, 25.6 rather value over replacement player. So that's well below all three of those guys. It's almost 10 lower than Vince Carter, who was the lowest of the top three. And then 86 win shares, which is higher than Vince Carter, but definitely lower than Pierce and McGrady. Not about about like 8 lower in terms of them, in terms of win shares. So I don't know. I mean, I guess the big question would have to be, and I was sort of thinking of this, Jason, when we were talking talking a little bit about this off air, is that, do you see Carmelo having more like superstar years after this? Or does he sort of have to turn into a role player-esque guy? Not necessarily, I'm not saying like a 6-man role player or whatever, but a guy that's sort of the second guy on a really good team, and then he can amass, a bunch of stuff and play until he's 40 or whatever? Or do you think it just takes, having 4 or 5 more like super productive, basically what we've gotten in the past 3-year Carmelo years to get to that point to where we maybe even talk about him in the top 50? I don't know.
It's going to be tough. I mean, if he does have like 4 or 5 more years that are, compare best seasons a couple years ago, then yeah, I think then you can kind of start just thinking about, what a great, even though, yeah, maybe he lacks in some of the other areas, he's just such a productive scorer, although not really that efficient of a scorer. That's been a little tricky too. I mean, yeah, it would help him to be on some really great teams and be, like the number 1 or a strong number 2 guy. That doesn't necessarily seem like it's in the cards. You never know, but yeah, I think it's definitely going to be an uphill climb. I mean, there isn't really necessarily much in the way of like influence, or like he's a famous player, but
yeah, and I was actually going to bring that up because I remember that was one of the criteria that we mentioned when we were doing these top 50s is let's look at cultural influence. And there's a guy we're going to talk about in a few episodes here where maybe statistically he might not add up, but culturally, I mean, he's such a huge figure. Melo, I don't know. I don't really get that. I feel like in 20 years. I don't know if people are going to, I mean, it's weird though. It's interesting because I feel like, now he's he's in a way he's significant. And I feel like everybody knows him and like he's a very popular figure, but I don't know if like generationally he's going to stand out, especially in this era with so many other, as we've talked about throughout this podcast, like generationally amazing legends or whatever. I just don't know where Melo's going to be in 20, 30 years when we talk about this era.
Yeah, I mean, being in New York helps, I guess. But, yeah, I just think, like, he's a fun player to watch, but he's not necessarily, like, a dynamic player. He's not, like, the most viable player in the world. That makes sense. Yeah, I mean,
no, absolutely.
Yeah,
his best games are like when he's just on fire. But the games where he's not, or he's just sort of being, a mediocre, not necessarily mediocre, but just kind of being okay or whatever. Those games are just like there's just nothing there. But then when he's on, Like there's nothing better than watching Carmelo where he's just like because especially the difficulty of a lot of his shots. I mean, he doesn't take shots in areas that are the most efficient spots or whatever, and guys are draped over him or whatever. But when he's having those games where he just cannot be stopped, it's one of the most entertaining things in the league. But like you said, yeah, a lot of times the games are just sort of like it's over and you're like, oh, Melo had 25. Oh, that's interesting. Like I didn't really I've been to games live where I've been there and like, oh shit, Melo has like 28 points. I didn't even notice. Like, when did that happen? Because it's just sort of it just kind of happens, and it's unique in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe the best hypothetical situation for him is if he were able to join sort of like a 2008 Celtics type team, like Pierce was in that point in his career. Like if he's able to kind of get on that super team and just be like exactly in the right role like Pierce is, because he's not. Pierce is ahead of him somewhat in terms of where they are at about the same point in their career, but it's relatively close. I don't know if you necessarily would have thought of Pierce as a top 50 guy, at age 30, whether he really would have been like a super great candidate for that. But now I think he's a very good candidate for that. And it's because of the second decade of his career. And he's never, Pearson, we'll talk more about him later, obviously. But, I don't know if at his peak, people thought of him as the top, 3 or 5 player like people have thought about Carmelo. I mean, he was runner-up in MVP one year. Whether that was actually merited is another question. But, he at least has had that view of him. McGrady's had that view of him as well. Carter and Pierce less so. So, it's not impossible. It is conceivable, but I don't think it's likely.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And I think the thing with Pierce is obviously at his age 30 years is the year of the Celtics' great run in the NBA Final run or whatever. But if we look at the year prior and you look at Pierce's career prior, I think a lot of people forget that this guy, and like you said, there's a future episode that we have on Paul Pierce where we'll talk a little bit more about this. But he was a guy that I'm sure you remember. People kind of had a lot of the same questions, not necessarily in terms of will he be a winner? But a lot of stuff of like, what will he sacrifice to be a winner? Is he just kind of a guy who puts up points on a good team or whatever? And we remember those Antoine Walker Boston years where it was like, yeah, these guys are entertaining, they're fun, they do all this sort of stuff, but that's not winning. I mean, is this guy really ever going to be, a champion or the number one player on a championship? And it turns out, no, he's not, but he's going to be a great number 2 and like an amazing number 2 for a good run. And then he's going to, also, I mean, that's the thing, too, is we're looking at this guy. He's about to approach his age, 37, 38 season. That's age 30 when he wins an NBA title. He's got another, like you said, 7 or 8 years that he added to that as well. So it might have to be a comp like that for Melo where he in the next few years, who knows, whoever comes to New York or Melo goes elsewhere or whatever, and he just becomes a solid number 2 and then does it for 7 more years or whatever. But is that probably, I mean, we're saying that, we're kind of fantasy, kind of thinking that in our mind. I don't know. It's to me, I think Pierce is a rare case, and I don't know. I just don't know if Melo can get there. I mean, he can. It's possible, but I wouldn't bet on it. That's where I would probably be at.
Yeah, I also think it helps if there's like a signature like clutch shot in a playoff moment for him. Which if he's had one, I don't recall it. I mean, he's obviously hit big shots, but there's not really a I can't think of one off the top of my head of like, a big game winner or, even like a, particularly big game and, in a major series. He hasn't advanced that far in the playoffs except for that 1 year with Denver. So that would certainly help either. That's obviously helped Pierce's case.
Certainly. So yeah, I think the consensus is I think we can just kind of knock him out, right? I think. I'm pretty easy on doing that. I don't think he needs to be in the final running.
Yeah. Sorry, Melo.
Sorry. We apologize.
All right. So everyone can, of course, find Over and Back at hardwoodparoxysm.com. And please subscribe to our iTunes feed, Over and Back and or the HP Network. They both are on iTunes. Ratings and reviews are always appreciated. All the great podcasts including us, are on the HP Network feed. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Over and Back NBA, and you can find us also our forums at overandbacknba.com. And we have a new newsletter that you can subscribe. It's a weekly newsletter with a kind of a roundup of what news and articles and podcasts and everything that's been written in the past week or so of NBA history. So we just started it. Hopefully people will enjoy it. Already gotten a nice little start on that, so check that out as well. So until next time, thanks for listening and goodbye.